Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival in Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew. What I have for you today is a breakdown on a hybrid military survival kit using the methodology I typically apply when selecting my survival kit items. I like to go with different kits from manuals, from training, from different military services, as well as foreign military or partnered forces. Take the best of all those, combine them together into a single kit, and that's usually what I run with all my survival kits, and then just modify those based on the environment that I'm in. So I'm going to break those down really quick, go over them, and then make that hybrid kit and show you what I typically run with. Stand by. All right, so that first kit is going to be based on Ranger School training because I had a good instructor say, hey, always keep a knife, a way to start fire, and the snack in your pocket, and I have those things on me right now. And so I've got a knife, I've got my snack, and then I've got my fire starter. So the knife, just the Leatherman Skeletool here, blade, pliers, screwdriver, bottle opener, everything you need for just a basic kit. And then obviously our lighter, that #1 fire starting tool, and a snack. I'm going to go with that MRE peanut butter because you can grab it, throw it right in the pocket, keep it warm, and it's instant calories in food, a lot of calories in a small package. All right, so that's the first kit. Let's move on to the next one. All right, that next kit is from my SERE training. We had a pocket kit item, and this one is also from Ranger School or the Ranger Handbook as well. But these items were mirrored or copied as far as SERE training. And what that is we're gonna have just a basic field knife, a utility knife. This one's nice and large for a pocket one with a good rubber grip, dexterity, good grip, very sharp cutting tool. A fire starter is gonna be that other item. There's a common theme with fire starters, obviously. And so we have a ferro rod. We were only allowed to use ferro rods for SERE training. 550 cord, a Hank. It's about 25 feet of paracord, and that's plenty that'll fit in a cargo pocket. You can never have too much of that. And then we have our signaling mirror that we can use to actually signal search and rescue forces and then put it back in our pocket. And then the next one is our watch. With our watch, we can put little button compasses on there if we want to, or even with the time, we could make a watch face and then use the sun to solar navigate with a piece of paper, the watch face drawn on it, and then understanding the time, and then using a gnomon or a shadow stick to give us a general north, south, east, west orientation so we can land navigate. But this pocket kit is going to be the SERE level, or what I carried in SERE school, inside the pockets. Very easy, very handy kit. Now we kind of go out to our partnered forces or to another branch of service. And there was a survival manual that I read while I was in training at one point, and it was the Marine Corps survival manual from, I think, the early 2000s maybe, but it had a personal survival kit on there for each Marine. And now obviously Marines are going to be amphibious forces. They're going to be on coastal waters, either out in the sea and then moving into the beachhead and then into the jungle, most likely in those tropical areas. So it made sense what they had in that manual. And that first item is going to be some sort of large cutting tool. Here we just have a basic machete in a modified or cut down military machete sheath. So we have a large cutting tool. This can be used by the entire group or carried by an individual Marine or service member out there on the beach. So we have that. Next we have just a belt knife. Any belt knife will do, Marines with their K-bars or bayonets or whatever they carry, but we have just that Mora HD right here. This is the same knife that I had in SERE training. And so we have this belt knife that goes on the belt, a fixed blade knife. It's not full tang. We would probably want to go with a full tang knife if we're going to be processing coconuts and things like that. Next we have just a folding knife or utility knife, a smaller one that can go in our pockets. Something for routine uses, just a basic utility knife. We're not going to be cracking into coconuts necessarily with this. We can make tools with this and then break that coconut open or process game, smaller tasks like that. Or a multi-tool, just a Leatherman wave here, obviously with a couple of different blades. Those pliers are going to be incredibly important, but a multi-tool or some sort of folding knife or utility knife to go with a belt knife and then with our large cutting tool. Notice there's a lot of cutting tools, and it makes sense being on a coastal region in that environment to have a lot of different cutting tools with us because we can use some for processing or taking down large material, use others for crafting traps or processing game, and then smaller blades for cutting clothing or sewing jobs or just making small tools around camp that we would need. So that makes sense. And then on top of that, one of the things that they recommend in that book or that manual is a compass, right? Obviously it makes sense to have a compass. And if you know where you're at and you can land navigate out of a situation, that's important too. Plus, it helps, especially in tropical regions, when you can't terrain associate, you're stuck in the jungle, and having a compass to at least help get those cardinal directions and then land navigate through dense vegetation. So you need that compass to stay oriented, otherwise you're gonna get lost in the jungle when the lights go out and the sun goes down. It's very important to have a compass. And then the last thing is part of that personal survival kit for each Marine to carry as a basic survival kit with all these blades and tools was a sharpener, some way to keep these tools honed. Obviously, in a very hot, humid, damp environment, blades, even carbon steel blades like that, they're gonna rust relatively quickly, just like this one. And so we're gonna need some sort of sharpening stone to keep the blade sharp, maintain the edge, so it will work for us. So that's another kit right there. And then another kit that is typical of most just conventional forces, for soldiers especially, is going to have those everyday items that we need for field training that go in the assault pack or in our pockets, things that we can carry fairly easily. Everybody knows you should be able to fit your canteen in your cargo pocket. All of us have had to put at least a 1 quart or a 2 quart in there. But we've got our canteen. This is a modified canteen that we can actually squeeze to force water out because it comes with its own filter. Normally we would have to use filter straws or iodine tablets like these guys right here. Treat that water to make it safe, and then you would want to strain that water first before putting it into a canteen and then treating it chemically. But we have a canteen and cup filter strainer kit right here. Everything we need to actually treat that water. So a canteen is going to be that first kit, that water bottle item for everyday use. Next, poncho or wet weather gear. How many times do you see on a packing list that we have wet weather gear or some sort of outer covering to help protect ourselves when we're out in the field? Even if it's nice weather, wet weather gear is going to be on that packing list, so we can throw this poncho up as a shelter, or we can wear it to help stay dry and maintain body temperature and maintain our clothing as well to stay as dry as possible. So we have that poncho in the assault bag. And then every soldier, especially working out in the woods like the infantry, we're going to have camo so we can veg up. It's another good item. A whistle, included the whistle because this is a great shift and lift fire signal or ceasefire signal, or just a basic auditory signal. Anyway, you can use this for emergency signaling, but typically this is going to be one of those small unit tactic pace items for direct fire communication between short distances in a firefight with friendly forces to your left and right in your battle buddy, to either shift fire or to communicate ceasefire. So that whistle is going to be as part of that kit. Again, this is for most conventional forces are going to have something like this, or at least find something like this in the PX. So I included that. Next, that tourniquet. If you worked in the GWAT, then you know a tourniquet's going to go in that pocket or the upper right shoulder pocket or wherever. So you have that tourniquet in the event of an IED or a rocket strike or whatever, or some sort of catastrophic injury. You can apply this to yourself or your buddy. If they get hit, you can grab theirs and apply it to save their life. So that tourniquet is going to be that item that's routine in a pocket that I've carried for years and years and years. And then one of the last items for conventional kits, just everyday items that we wouldn't normally think about as survival items, but are incredibly important anyway, is just going to be that headlamp, so we can actually use it at night. The red lens flashlight, so we can see. Red lens or red light has a wavelength that dissipates. That light's not going to spread as far as compared to a white light at nighttime, so the enemy can't see it. But we can use this, cover ourselves with that poncho and a poncho liner, check our map underneath with the red lens flashlight, and then turn everything off and move on back to the patrol. But this one, especially with a strobe setting, is going to be great as a passive signal. So that's our fourth kit here, with just basic conventional items that could go in the assault pack to sustain life or to sustain us out in the field, on top of this with water and food. And then lastly, one of the kits that I always pull from the list of kits available out there, or something that I'll build myself as part of a kit, is going to be that SAS survival tin made popular by John Lofty Wiseman. These kits are actually recommended in a lot of different military manuals, and they recommend even putting stuff like this in maybe one of those camp soap dishes. One of my SERE instructors actually had something like this with a good kit in it. But I prefer those metal craft tins because if this thing takes a shot, it's not going to break apart. Or if I sit on this the wrong way, it's not going to crack and break like that plastic soap dish. But just a small possibles tin. This has stuff in it, a basic kit that we can use combined with those large cutting tools, with those large items to make survival possible. So this is going to have everything else in it, the smaller items that we need to actually survive. So we'll see out here first. Now with this one we have tin foil. That way we can use this to create a cup, another way of boiling or catching or collecting water. I'm treating it to make it safe to drink. We've got just a basic small knife in there as well. Another cutting tool. You can't have too many knives, as the Marines know. We've got our ferro rod for fire. We've got matches for fire. We've got a small commando wire saw to take down material for fire, as long as we use it appropriately. Safety pins, clothing repair, improvisation. We've got that nice button compass. Huge fan of button compasses, if you couldn't tell. Just basic cardinal directions that we can use to find our way and land navigate. We've got a good fishing kit, a series of hooks, lures. We want to have lures in kits like this because we may not be able to go find bait right away, or we may get to a water source abruptly without knowing it and want to fish right away. So if we have lures, we can fish right away, but if we don't, we have to go find bait to actually get a fish on that hook. So bring lures as part of a fish kit. Then we've got wire or snare wire that we can use to set up snares. This is black anodized wire that you can get. I think it's 24 gauge or so, and this stuff will blend into the environment, but it'll still act as a snare, so it's not as high vis as that brass snare wire we typically see. And then a lot of micro cordage. This is about 50 feet of micro cord, OD green, so it blends in. We can use this for shelter craft and snares and traps as well. Lots of cordage. And then we have our fishing line, a sewing bobbin, and this is braided low vis line. I believe it's 15 or 20 pound tensile strength. So we can use this for fishing, but we can also use it for sewing and repairing clothing. We've got tinder to go along with our fire kit, some basic medicines, pain reliever, fever reducer, antihistamines. We've got antibiotic ointment. We've got a small hacksaw. This is great for a striker with that ferro rod, but we can use this as a flint and steel set as well, or to cut through metal. We've got just a sterilized razor blade. We can use this with our medical kit. A couple of smaller razor blades, just kind of those standard razor blades that we have. We've got a signal mirror, several antiseptic wipes or isopropyl alcohol wipes right here. These can be used to treat an injury, make it clean, or sterilize the area, as well as a fire starter. We've got antibiotic ointment Band-Aids ready to go, so we don't have to use this. We can save it for later. These things are ready to go on those small cuts, help prevent infection. And then a series of other bandages. Big fan of the H-style bandage or Band-Aid. And then some of these are regular styles here to go around those knuckles or those hard to reach places, a la Morris Kahansky. And then even up here underneath the tin, we have sewing needles, large, small. One is already prepped with thread to repair that clothing or even act as an improvised suture. So let's pack this up. And then there's the tin, all taped up, ready to go, waterproof. This goes right in one of those smaller pockets in our uniform. Very lightweight. All these items are expendable. If we lose them, we're not really out anything unless this is our only kit. We usually have other items to supplement with something like this. All right, so now I'm going to present the hybrid kit with all the items that I typically pull for my own personal survival kit, stuff that I'll carry on my person or things that I will put in my pockets and inside the assault bag to carry as an everyday survival kit. All right, so that first thing obviously going to be the survival tin. I take this, I put it in my pocket. It's got all those other items that I need in there, and it's got a lot more as part of this kit. So with the other kits that we have, we can actually start dropping items off. So we're going to keep that survival tin. Now with that SERE pocket kit, even the Ranger pocket kit, a lot of this stuff, the survival mirror, I don't need because I have one in here, and then I can use other methods to actually signal friendly forces. So why carry a larger mirror like this if I have one in the survival tin? So I'm going to dish this. I typically want to have as much cordage as possible, so I'm going to keep this. Now with the ferro and with the knife, I already have a pocket knife on me, as part of my kit. And this one actually has more tools than this, even though this is a larger blade that's still really robust, and I filed down the spine so I can use it as a striker, but I can also use this as a striker as well. So I'm gonna ditch this large folding knife, and I already have another ferro inside this survival tin, so I can ditch this as well. All right, so we've got these items. I'm gonna put my pocket knife back in my pocket. Pretend it's sitting out on the table. We're gonna keep that headlamp because we can't see in the dark yet, so we'll use this not only as a signal, but to find our way in the dark and to see at night. That camo, depending on the nature of the situation, that camo can stay in our kit, or we can break this down to those small camo sticks and use that as well. This has a mirror in it, so it's another signaling device, but we're gonna take this out just for now because this is just gonna be a routine everyday survival kit. Typically in survival, we're not gonna veg up or trying to be found. So I'm gonna take this out. That canteen bottle set, again, I've got the canteen, I've got the filter, I've even got my canteen cup, a complete water treatment kit right here, even in the pouch with a little bit extra room. We can add a few more items if we wanted to. We're gonna keep this as our water source because we can use it a bunch of different ways to filter, strain, and then boil that water to make it safe to drink and actually travel with that water in an enclosed container. So we're keeping the canteen, obviously. That whistle, we don't have one in the survival tin. This is a great auditory signal, and we can even take this and just hook it inside of our assault bag on a carabiner, or place it inside a smaller kit, or even attach it maybe to our headlamp or to our knife, or stick it in our pocket, wherever, and we have another auditory signal, so we're gonna keep that. And the poncho, I'm a big fan of the 5 C's, and so obviously we have one and a couple others, 2 or 3 right there with cordage and then fire starters in the tin, but we need cover. So we need that covering item, and you can see this poncho. It's one of the cheaper models. It breaks down, it's like half a poncho technically. And we take this, but it still works just as well for a sheltering item or wet weather gear. So we're gonna keep this as our cover item. Then we have that USMC kit. Now I already have a pocket knife on my hip, so with that other pocket knife, we can ditch this. Fan of small sharpening stones like this, or diamond rods. This thing is great. It's got a gritty side and then a smoother side, so we can use this to maintain our blades. We're gonna keep that, so we can place that in our pocket or a salt bag. Love a good fixed blade knife, and this is the knife that I grew up using with survival and other moras like it, and so I'm gonna keep this. I also wanna have that really good compass for land navigation, so we keep that. The multi-tool, again, I have a multi-tool in my pocket as my basic kit item, that knife, fire starter, and snack in the pocket. So I already have the pliers on here. The thing I'm really missing from this is the saw, and maybe a couple other tools, and so we can trade these out or weigh these, but for an everyday kit, I'm just gonna carry this, and I'm gonna leave this back in the rear. And for a large cutting tool, huge fan of just having just a large processing tool, something that fits in the rucksack or in the assault bag. It's not gonna be sticking out of the top, or something I'd have to attach to the side of the bag or something like that. So a smaller machete like this is great. Other things I've used in the past, obviously that entrenching tool, something like this, the Spetsnaz shovel from Cold Steel is great. We can even take the handle off and simply just put the head in the bag with our kit, and then craft a handle out there in the field. Or something that I've carried for years and years and years is just a small hatchet. That hatchet, we can take down material, really easy, gross motor skills. We can even use something like this as a flint and steel fire. This will craft a bow drill set. We can use this for just about everything. It'll process game, but not very well. But in a winter environment, if that game's frozen, we can just chop it up with this thing, remove the entrails, and then we're good to go. Especially with kind of a cheaper hatchet like this with different metal compound that's not gonna be 100% carbon steel and not really that stainless. We need sharpening stones to maintain that blade, especially a file to put that bit back nice and sharp. But this is something I've carried forever. Always have that large tool as part of my kit, and I recommend people carry kind of that larger tool as a kit anyway, because when it comes to it, it's just gross motor skills and swinging this thing around to process and take down that material, collect it, and bring it back to camp. That makes it very, very easy. So we're gonna keep that. All right, guys, so you can see basically the entire kit right here. And typically, the things that I'll pull from all of those kits, the best of those things that I can cross-load in my uniform, like the tin or the paracord, even the headlamp can wear around the neck, and then larger items that we can go inside the rucksack, our belt knife, this canteen set, as well as that large cutting tool. We take these out and then we can wear them or just use them, put them back in the assault bag for later on. All of these items can either be worn, can be placed on the hips or on our belt, on our flick, load-bearing equipment, plate carrier, whatever, or it can go inside the rucksack so we can pick and play these items for whatever situation that we have. So a lot of these items, again, depends on the situation, depends on what we have with us. This is a lot of stuff to carry for survival, but we want a good, robust survival kit to give us the best chances and employ the tools the right way for the right task at the right time, rather than relying just on one knife, piece of cordage, and then one signaling device. We have a lot of different options. In case some of those fail, we can use those other ones. And that's the whole point, is that we have level systems here, things that go in our pockets, things that go on our plate carrier, and then things that go inside the rucksack or the assault bag. So we can use those items, replenish our stores if we run out of matches or whatever. And then if we lose some of our items, or we drop our rucksack, it falls off the side of a mountain, which has been known to happen, of course, we can use what's in our pockets to survive, get to our pickup or recovery location safely, and then reintegrate back into friendly forces. So this is the kit, but I typically pull from a lot of other different kits. So I really hope you guys like this video, a different methodology or explanation on how I build my survival kits, and maybe some ideas for you guys as well. All right, guys, a down and dirty video today on the survival kits with those 5 kits and then the hybrid set of items that I pick and play from based off those kits, and then my own methodology and needs and requirements and the environment that I'm in. So I really hope you like this video. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment in the comment section. I always appreciate your feedback. I want to thank you guys for everything you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.